Good afternoon. On behalf of Jerry and the Slakoff family, I want to say thank you all for coming today to celebrate the extraordinary life of Nancy Slakoff. I'm David Falkenstrom, a friend for over 30 years, and Nancy's personal fitness trainer for over 20. It is my pleasure today, with the many voices that we will hear both in person and by letter, to take us on a journey that honors and celebrates the wonderful, one-of-a-kind person Nancy was. Our first speaker today is Heather Hopley, Nancy's daughter.
Oh man, I was hoping David would speak a lot longer. I'm going to do my best up here. My dear friend Heather, another Heather, is here as a backup in case I can't get through this today. But we will see how this goes. Okay, so thank you again for everyone being here to celebrate my mother and her abundantly blessed 76 years of life, love, and living. And as David said, I'm Heather. I'm Nancy's daughter. I think everyone here knows my mom died from Alzheimer's, and that Alzheimer's sucks. It's a brutal and progressive disease that slowly robbed my mom of her mind and her memories, and eventually her physical being. Needless to say, we've been grieving the loss of my mother long before she finally passed over and left her body. My mother was an incredibly generous, loving, and caring woman. She will always be my inspiration and guiding force in life, and I will always hold her in high esteem because of how she lived her life. She taught me to be independent, to listen to my intuition, and to be true to myself. Whether or not I always followed her teachings, as we know, is a different story. It's just some little known facts about my mom. I think we all know, or most of us know, she was born in PA in Tamaqua, but she always referred to it proudly as the being born and raised in the anthracite coal region of Pennsylvania. She grew up on foods like pierogies, halupkis, scrapple, and shoe fly pie. Those are definitely foods we cannot get around here. And we cannot forget Heisler's CMPs. So here on the program is my mom with this ice cream cup, and this is Heisler's. This is Heisler's Dairy Farm, and CMP is chocolate sauce, marshmallow sauce, and peanuts on top of soft serve vanilla custard. So, yes. Anyhow. So while my mom was in high school, this is kind of crazy thing about her I had no idea about. She was in the bugle band. My mom apparently played the bugle, and she wanted to be a journalist when she grew up. And of course she had quite the knack for writing, but instead she studied elementary education, and she ended up teaching the 4th grade. Another thing I only recently learned about her, it's funny, after my mom passes over, all these things I learn, being that just because of my own interest in painting, is that she was an artist back when and painted with acrylics when she was in high school and college. So I found that pretty fascinating. Reflecting upon with my mom teaching the 4th grade, one day in Pennsylvania, where I had lived way back when, she was actually the substitute teacher for my 4th grade class. And I remember sitting there in class, and I shyly raised my hand to go to the bathroom, And I was like, what do I call her? Do I call her Mom, or do I call her Mrs. Hopley, like, which was her married name at the time? And all the kids thought that was, pretty funny, of course. So, my mom, we've always endearingly referred to her as our woo-woo mom. And she was definitely ahead of her time in that metaphysical sense. As my dad, Jerry, has said about her, my mom was a spiritually enlightened being, even though she was always searching for it. I can remember back in the late 70s in Pennsylvania, my mom would take me to, which I didn't know until maybe 10 years ago, she would take me to Amrit Desai's Yoga Center that was in Summit Station, and it was Kripalu in its infancy. And so she would sit there and meditate, and I would run around in the fields and playing with the other kids. And so I thought that was a pretty cool experience with Mom, especially looking back at it now. So in 1979, my coal cracker mom became this water-living princess when she met Jerry. They moved from Pennsylvania to Fort Lauderdale and started their life together with nothing. And my dad would always tell me stories about going to Burger King, and those buy one, get one free coupons were a necessity for them back then. So my dad had this brilliant idea about serving boats to make a living. They are in Fort Lauderdale, they are on the water. And mind you, my mom, she knew nothing about boats and nothing about the marine industry other than paddling around, in a canoe with her father in the Poconos. So, needless to say, their marine surveying business grew into a very successful enterprise. And then for the next 30 years, the two of them were together basically 24/7, except when Jerry would go off on his motorcycle trips and my mom would make her treks to India. And she had been going to India in the late 90s, early 2000s. And even my dad even went there a few times with her, which is kind of crazy to think of if knowing him. Anyhow, so there's a guru in Kulu that she studied with, enjoyed his teachings, and she would share with us things about interconnectedness and oneness. Or when my head would start spinning about something, I could hear her voice. Like, she would just say to me, "Heather, you're not your mind. Stop listening to it." And right? And like, yeah, Mom, it's a lot easier said than done. Oh my gosh. So Jerry, he affectionately called my mom his Shayna because she resonated both this inner and outer beauty. She flowed with grace and kindness and generosity, which just radiated outward to everyone that she met. And as equally fitting was her guru-given name of Swagat, meaning always welcome. And my mom always made anyone she encountered feel welcome in her presence. Whether it was when I was a kid or even as an adult, my friends here would just attest to, how she made them feel just so welcomed and at home, and if she knew them for years. So life in Sedona. So my mom, she would often tell me what a blessed and happy life she had with my dad, and how blessed she was to be living here in Sedona, and the friendships she had formed. Many who I know are here with us now. And she loved to sit in the living room and look out the big picture window that we have at Shiprock and Wilson Mountain. And it's a view that we never ever tired of, that she never tired of. And especially at sunset, when you look out the window and the rocks just they're so illuminated, they look as if they're on fire. So needless to say, there's no TV in the living room. It's just this exquisite view of the magical red rocks. And so here in Sedona, my mom loved going out on her walks with Ella, who I see, and talking with the Starbucks group on Saturday mornings. And then she loved training at the gym with Amy, who's somewhere here, and then and going to Unity on Sundays. And she studied Reiki healing, and she was a Reiki master. I mean, my mom was pretty darn impressive. You know, she would go to Ollie classes here, and she just led this amazing, rich, active life in Sedona that, you know, I could only aspire to have when I retire. So moving on to living with Alzheimer's. So the doctors think my mom started showing signs of Alzheimer's about 10 years ago. And initially we just chalked it up to her ditziness, you know, to chemo brain, because my mom was a breast cancer survivor. A very memorable crazy brain moment of my mom that I have of my mom was we're at a restaurant for breakfast, and she mistakenly drank the entire pitcher of maple syrup rather than her coffee and exclaimed, that was some of the best tasting coffee ever. It sure was. My dad, Jerry, had to eventually get assistance for my mom in the house, and we were so very fortunate to have found April O'Keefe. And there she is. And she just tirelessly and lovingly helped take care of my mom, and also my dad for that matter, despite my mom's angry outbursts and wacky behavior. My mom went to memory care, actually it was last June, almost a year ago. And a funny story there was one center she was at that she lasted at for one whole week. And within that week that she was there, she managed to escape not once, but twice from this place. And it gets better. It was a locked facility. So my mom she wanted out. She just wanted to be at home, sitting on the couch and enjoying her Red Rocks. But from October until when she passed in April 24th, she was at the Austin House in Cottonwood, and I just really have to say the staff there was just amazing. They did such a spectacular job caring for my mom, and they truly did love her and care for her, despite my mom having her ornery moments. So my mom, you know, everyone here knows her. She's a sweet, loving, kind mother who could do no harm, right? But at this facility she was actually known to punch, hit, and even strangle others at the memory care center. I mean, that's just, right, the crazy disease of Alzheimer's, and, you know, we're not, it wasn't her. Oh, so my mom, she passed over on April 24th, 2021 at 1:11 a.m. and returned to Source, which is where she always said we come from and return to. Because I asked her one day, I said, Mom, like, why do you always say passed over and not passed on? And that's how she explained it to me. I was like, that makes sense. So just before my mom passed over on April 24th at 1 a.m., my dad thought he was having a dream. He saw my mom sitting up in bed, just as if she was really there. And she had thousands of dark rays of light with white sparkly tips at the end of these rays, just shooting out from all over her, like a million different directions. And when my dad called out my mom's name, you know, she looked at him and then disappeared, and then he woke up. And he looked at the clock, and it was 1:11 a.m. And then soon thereafter, unfortunately, right, the phone rang, and it was the hospice caregiver calling to say that my mom had passed over. So since we're in Sedona, and my mom was woo-woo, we need to, the number 111 as an angel number. Funny how it symbolizes such things as spiritual awakening and enlightenment and new beginnings, connection and oneness. And certainly my mom couldn't be any more spiritually awakened and off to new beginnings as she is now. To make this story even more uncanny, so I was flipping through my mom's old journals. She loved to write. We have so many diaries, some half written in, some completely finished. And I was flipping through some of them, and the words like death and dying jumped out at me. I was like, what's this about? And so she wrote in this diary it was 8 years ago in 2013, about death, about dying. And she definitely was not afraid of, when this moment would finally happen. In fact, she described death as being beautiful, that it was the most wonderful feeling you would ever feel, and that there was nothing in the world equal to it. She wrote, this is written again 8 years ago, "You change from a body into a bunch of tingling little light energies. It's as though every cell in your body is pure energy, and now you are pure energy and nothing else. You're ageless and effortless, and nothing and everything. You're you, but without a body. Death is a symphony, a harmony, a melting, a melding, a renewal, a letting go that makes you whole. Nothing matters about the old you because the new you is past, present, future, and more. You are total beauty and love. When it is time to transition, you will close your eyes and float away. You become all of the stars and planets and universes. You become sparkling light energies." So, what my mom described so many years ago is what, to me, my dad saw in his dream. My mom's energy body dissolving and leaving her body as this sparkling, tingling little light energies for him to see. And this was, her way of letting him know that she was returning to source and was everywhere and nowhere and perfectly at peace. As hard as it is accepting the fact that my mom is no longer here in her physical body, I am relieved knowing she is no longer suffering. She is now my guardian angel and is here with us now as sparkling light energy. She always was and always will be my inspiration, guiding light, and woo-woo mom, and I will always be her Heather girl. I leave you with a poem that Audrey Hepburn wrote that my mom wanted to have read today, which reflects how she lived her life. For attractive lips, speak words of kindness. For lovely eyes, seek out the good in people. For a slim figure, share your food with the hungry. For beautiful hair, let a child run her fingers through it once a day. For poise, walk with the knowledge that you never walk alone. People, even more than things, have to be restored, renewed, revived, reclaimed, and redeemed. Never throw out anyone. Remember, if you ever need a helping hand, you will find one at the end of each of your arms. As you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself and the other for helping others. So, here's to you, Mom. Thanks, everyone.
Our next speaker is Michael Hopley, Nancy's son.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming out here. It's wonderful to see you all. As you know, my mom is a wonderful woman, and she always is. One unique thing about her is she was a Marine mom, and I could say she practically went everywhere around the country where my wife and her grandchildren went. She was something else. Probably one of the most unique things or places she got to see, which very few Marine moms could ever say. She went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And there's this airline, it's called Fandango, and it's a little prop job. And you're squashed in, and then picture Dad with his height being crunched into this little tiny Cessna. And they fly into Guantanamo Bay, and I remember meeting them on the other side, and you see Dad hunched over, getting out, coming down the walkway. And here's Mom. Oh, look at this. Look at this place. And I'm like, yeah, welcome to Gitmo, Mom. And them two were so excited about getting there. And we're driving up down the island. They see my mom very aware of her surroundings because she's already, by this time, already had 7-8 years in the Marine Corps, so I always would educate her on a lot of things. And she keeps looking at the side of the road, and then there'll be these little bunkers that are put there for strategic purposes. But she's like, what is that? What is that? Hey, that's a bunker, Mom. Oh, can I go in it? Sure. And here's Mom crawling down the bunker, looking up. She was just something. And my mom, whether she knows it or not, she endured, as well as Dad and our family, endured a lot of history. And what I mean by that is, first part of our career as a military family was Desert Storm was the big one for Mom. She was something. She wrote Commandant Gray at the time. She wrote George W. Bush at the time. Yeah, my son's in Iraq. Letting everybody know. And she did so much wonderful support for everybody. She got involved with the veteran organizations. She did a lot for Vietnam vets and disabled veterans. And she just did so much. She's so generous. And the carrot boxes she would just send out to everybody. Not just my unit, but all units everywhere. And it was just impressive. And she just had this whole network of people just sending her love, sending her messages, and it was just wonderful. And then she was ultimate during the Iraq War, from 03 to 09 when I served. And she was so supportive. Her and Dad even sent out stuff to the refugees that we had to deal with. And just for these people who have absolutely nothing except for the clothes on their back and stuff. Just the generosity and love that she had sent to people she never even met in her life. And just so wonderful. As a grandmother, you couldn't ask for a better grandmother. She just loved her grandkids. She just done everything for them. Always being there for them, visiting them every chance she's got. She made many long treks in her life. She's the most unselfish person you could have ever met in your life, and everyone in this room already knows that, and I know I'm kind of regurgitating what my sister has said. But she's just such a wonderful, wonderful woman, and a wonderful mother-in-law to my wife, Gintana. So supportive with everything what everyone does, and everybody in this room. So I wrote this It's more like, I guess maybe a sonnet. And it just came to me one night. And I was laying there in bed. And all of a sudden, all these words start popping into my head. And I was like, okay, Mom, all right, I'll write it in the morning. So when I got to work the next day, no one was around, and I got on my Word doc, and I wrote this, and I hope you enjoy it. Mom, our mom who is friend to all and who loves everyone in this room, and whomever is watching her service, and even those who can't. She is a loving, caring, devoted mother to all of her children. She is a loving, caring, devoted, and awesome grandmother to her grandchildren. She is a loving, caring, devoted wife to her husband. She is a loving, caring, devoted mother and person to all of her family, friends, and loved ones. Mom doesn't want us to be sad, angry, or feel empty. She always preached about being happy. Happiness is the key to her success and her way of life. She always wants everyone to be happy with themselves, with what they do each and every day, and how we live our lives. She always wants the best for everybody at all times. She wants us to live our lives to the fullest and enjoy ourselves, especially with the ones we love. She wants us to have compassion and love for one another. Even when we're upset or sad with one another, she wants us to rise above those things and learn from our mistakes, because life is precious. She wants us to move on to bigger and better things and not to live in the past. Always live life and be happy is what she says. Mom still teaches us all about life. She teaches us all that it does not end and it still goes on. Her strong spirituality is a part of us each and every day. She believes we're all connected in some shape or way and that we are all one with one another. We are all part of the balance of the universe. It took me many years to get an understanding to what she is saying. You have to look deep within yourself to figure it out and get the spiritual understanding of it. Mom is in a better place now. She is in the kingdom of God. She may not be physically here in person, but she is still here in spirit. She is no longer suffering. She has her mind back and her youth. She is with her dad, her family that preceded her dogs, her family, friends, and loved ones, and she has her youth. She is with it. She can travel anywhere at any time. She wants to know that and to be happy for her. Our mom is still a loving, caring, understanding, compassionate, strong, courageous, energetic, and high-spirited woman. She is all around us each and every day. She is here with us now. She is ready to listen anytime to any of us. All we have to do is call her name and she'll be by your side. God bless you, Mom. We love you. Semper Fi.
Our next speaker is Cheryl Slakoff, Jerry's daughter.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for coming. To celebrate Nancy Ann's life, my stepmom and friend. Nancy truly taught me what spirituality is all about. Her love for all of us was shown unconditionally, never favoring one child over another. Her giving spirit was continual all year long. In fact, I called her Mrs. Claus. She never forgot any of her children, any of her friends, gifts beyond, and gifts continuing. Heather and I found gifts for people, and I helped her buy those gifts at these trade shows, and she was like, I need this. We found them just recently, and there's probably gifts for every one of you in this room. We had a wonderful memory under the bed of Mom. She showed us all that being independent and doing the things you love make us stronger. And this was evident in her personal fitness. She was incredibly diligent with her workouts every day. The gym, she kicked our butts on simple walks in Sedona. She'd walk uphill, Heather and I, and her hands behind her back, at incredible angles, and she just smoked us. She right up the hill. And it was really wonderful, our walks that we had. She found goodness in all, especially fur babies. Nancy was the apple guru in our family. She was online and creating incredible greeting cards. Her Photoshop talent was at the expert level. The entire family were recipients of her humorous greeting cards and gifts, which were all intervened in our lives and were so purposeful when we got them. Nancy never passed judgment on anyone. She always brought positivity, humor, generosity to my life. And all the great times we spent together was always present and incredible blessings that she brought. She taught me the word blessings. She was the first to say it, that we're all so blessed. She made you stop and think. I think of her fondly as I hear her voice, I see her face, I hear her infectious laugh, and see her beautiful smile. She would bring that smile to everyone's face. And this is what I will continue to hold on to her wonderful memory forever and ever. I thank you all for being here today to celebrate Nancy, because she was incredible. And I just know that the hard departure was that I've got the best, and you all have wonderful memories of your time with Nancy while she was here. So thank you. And I pass the baton back to David.
Our next speaker would be Steve Cutler, Cheryl's husband.
Nancy's been in my life for, 26 years. The one thing that I can share with you that my wife and Heather and Michael did not share, maybe they did, but in a different way. The one great thing that I will always remember about Nancy Ann, she was a great listener. She knew me when I was going from one business, developing another business, and she was a sounding board for me. She listened to me at a time when I needed people to listen to me, because I really wasn't sure what I was doing. And she actually gave me a little bit of light and focus and cleared that foggy, all the complications and issues that a person has when they're going from working for somebody else to working for themselves. And I guess it's because she's been there. And I'll never forget Nancy Ann. She'll always be with me, and I express the same sentiments my wife and Heather and Michael have shared with all of you. And everybody in this room is so lucky and blessed to have had Nancy Ann in their life for whatever amount of time it was, because she is truly a special, special human being. And we should all aspire to just be half the person that she was. But anyways, I want to thank everybody for being here, and I don't have a lot to say that hasn't been said, but just know that I feel it as everyone in this room feels, that whether you get up here and talk or not, she was just one special, special person. And my father-in-law, Jerry, is so blessed and lucky to have had the happiness and the relationship that he did with Nancy for the years that he had that. Most people never have it, Jerry, and you're a real lucky man. Anyways, thank you all for coming today, and David, you're back up.
Before I read the next 4 letters of tribute to Nancy, I'd like to share how I was first introduced to Nancy. I met her at the Sports and Fitness Clinic in Lauderdale by the Sea in 1990. I had only been in Florida for about 1 year. She was assigned to me as a personal training client. We hit it off right away. After only a few sessions together, I was her guy. And she invited me to the house for a cookout and to meet Jerry and the family. Soon I was training Jerry as well. We became more like family and friends than trainer and clients. The first letter I'd like to read to you is from Rena Lichtinger. Rena is a reverend and yoga instructor that was a friend of Jerry's and Nancy's. Rena writes, "Beloved friends and family, today is a reminder of the power of love. Beloved Nancy will live in our hearts for eternity. I am in deep sorrow with all of you present here. Nancy truly believed that the spirit never dies. Let's embrace this moment as a celebration of life. Nancy truly believed in the spiritual world. I know her presence is being acknowledged right now. On our last trip visit Jerry and Nancy 2 years ago, I kept telling my dear friend Nancy, your mind doesn't understand the disease that is causing you fear and anger. Inside of you is a Nancy full of calm and peace. Nancy loved the beautiful inner peace of the red rocks. In a way, they became her salvation. Sitting in her living room, being one with nature and walking the hills of Sedona. I ask all of you, beloved participants in this ceremony today, every step you take in your walks, know that Nancy will remain there with you forever and ever. In the same way, I know Watson is already with Nancy in the rainbow bridge of the afterlife. With all my love and respect, Reverend Rena Lichtinger, Ishwari." The next letter I will read is from Jerry Bowden. Jerry and her husband Al were social friends of Nancy and Jerry from Sedona. Jerry writes, "Nancy Ann Slakoff. I vividly remember the first time I met Nancy through Al and Nancy's husband Jerry. Quickly I learned first impressions are not always the best ones. After spending the first evening at dinner, I learned this lady was well-traveled with vast knowledge of many subjects. I never would have guessed that she was a bodybuilder, all in caps. Boy, was I wrong. I saw her as a petite little lady. Don't ever judge a book by its cover. We spent many holidays enjoying their company at 505 Orchard Lane. The generosity was above and beyond expectations. I did see her suffer through Alzheimer's disease at the same time Al was experiencing this. Nancy and Jerry showed us warm friendship for over 10 years. She will always be remembered by me as a warm, compassionate person. I expect that she is up there with Al, working out in the gym. My words to Jerry are, when you think you have nothing left but God, you discover that God is enough." Jerry Bowden. Our next letter comes from Amy Stubblefield, personal trainer at Los Abrigados Spa, a trainer here at a local Sedona gym, and many of you may know her. I first met Nancy at Los Abrigados Spa when her personal trainer made a career change to teaching school. She enjoyed her relationship with Christine and was hesitant to try someone new. All who knew Nancy understood what that meant. She was going to make me prove my worth before I got her approval, or even a friendly conversation. Fortunately, I passed the exams and we quickly formed a great rapport. Nancy's physical fitness was a big priority in her life. She always wanted to work hard, get stronger, meet a new challenge. She was a trainer's ideal client. I can attest to that. She also had a wicked sense of humor, and over the years we became friends as well. As her illness progressed and she became frustrated with her symptoms, she felt comfortable sharing her emotions with me. And I became more and more invested in helping her in any way I could. The gym was a sanctuary for her, where her long history of physical training allowed her long-term memory to take over, and she could spend an hour away from her issues. I was hoping to continue with her as long as she was able to be at home, but COVID changed these plans. I will miss Nancy's mixture of toughness, humor, and caring sensitivity. I take comfort in knowing that she doesn't have to deal with her devastating disease any longer. Amy Stubblefield, personal trainer. Our next letter is from Marge and Steve Gosen. Marge and Steve are 50 years, longtime friends who traveled extensively with the Slakoffs. Marge writes, "Sometimes the smallest things take up the most room in your heart." And these words hold true for our friend Nancy. Whenever we were together, the time spent was well spent, comfortable, no pretenses, full of laughter, genuine. Some people are like an old sofa, soft, warm, and comfortable. Nancy was always so easy to be with and always true to heart. Our memories are many. Trips to Florida, trips to New England, laughing at our husbands on top of Mount Washington, covered in rain and ice, hair frozen straight up, nose hairs with icicles. Hysterical. Then again, both of them Googling over the tops of their sunglasses as if no one else could see them when we were on a nude beach in the Caribbean, looking at two identical twins. Another part of the New England trip was also quite memorable. Our horseback ride through the beautiful mountains of Vermont, with Jerry yelling, "This horse's name should have been Ballbuster," kept us laughing years later. But the flight home, we flew to Vermont in our plane, was really memorable. As we neared Boston's Logan Airport, something in the plane smelled a little bit like an electrical wire burning. Slakoff was so white-knuckled, he had to land at Logan Airport, and they got off. Nothing was wrong with the plane, she says. Just a finicky autopilot. I'd have got off too. We just flew home. They caught a flight back to Florida, but oh, that memory was a doozy. But reminiscing now, there is no doubt our best of all time together was our weekend in the Poconos at Cove Haven. Rooms with heart-shaped beds and large tubs with lots of bubbles. So we hired a photographer to take our picture, all together in the tub with gallons of bubbles everywhere. That photo was front and center in both of our homes unto this day. It has brought years of laughter as all who viewed it wanted to know, naked or not? We have chuckled for years, none of us divulging the truth. Until our last conversation with Nancy, we continued to revisit our many wonderful memories. Still laughing after all these years about our vacations and our friendship. We love you, Nancy. Always have, always will. Until we meet again, Marge and Steve. So like you hear in these letters, Nancy and Jerry were wonderful friends to anyone they got close to. As our relationship developed, I got to experience their generosity and to be a part of their story. Nancy, by training hard and consistently, lost 50 pounds, and Jerry, 100. All the while, they were working together in the boat surveying business and traveling all over the USA on the motorcycle. When Nancy went out of town, she would always look for the local gym to train at. And she'd put me to work while she was away, either house sitting or sending in Heather or Michael to train in her slot. She did these things. This was totally Nancy. She did these things because she wanted me to get the income and to share the gift of fitness with others. She was a total gift to everyone she met. So our next speaker today will be Barry Friedman.
Hello, everybody. People like to say that if something goes wrong, God is testing you. Well, Nancy, she was tested till the end, and then I brought a little special thing for her. she became an angel on the 24th. Jerry and Nancy live right down the street from me. When I first moved down there, Jerry said, "You can't move here." I said, "Why?" "Because you got to be more than 200 steps from my house." So Nancy said, "We'll use my footprint instead." So she walked past the house every day. We said hello every day, and Jerry shared a picture with me. "You didn't see Nancy in a bikini when she was working out." And I went, "Whoa, that's really hot stuff." So Nancy was never called Nancy again. She was always called Hot Stuff. We had the occasion, Jerry and I had the occasion to visit her at the facility. The first time we went, she did know me. The second time, she didn't know me at all. But every time I said, "How you doing, Hot Stuff?" at least I got a little smile. So I'm going to make it short and sweet. I love the family. Everybody knows me. I know them. And it's just a pity that God was in a rush. But he has a really good angel. Maybe the people up in heaven are working out together. And thank you for coming.
Our next speaker is Susie Pittman, representing her dad, Ed Pittman.
This was written by my father. The one thing that I remember most about Nancy is her physical fitness, or rather her dedication to it. This started years ago when she lived in Florida and worked out with her trainer, David, and became a bodybuilder. After she moved to Sedona, she worked out 3 days a week with a trainer at the spa. The other days she walked over hill and dale. Sedona has no shortages of hills. She typically went 5 miles walking with friends. Jerry said he couldn't walk with her because he was too slow. This exercise kept her strong. After Alzheimer's put her in a care facility, she couldn't exercise, but she was still strong. For some patients, the disease has a violent phase. This happened to Nancy. The caregivers had to be careful because Nancy would sometimes react with a blow to the face. More than one caregiver received right hooks from Nancy. She put a man on the floor by yanking on his ponytail. They learned to respect her and to be careful. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Susie Higgins.
Hello. I was a friend of Nancy's for over 30 years. She was a soul sister to me. I met her through Heather. Heather was a client of mine, and I'm exactly in the middle between the two of them age-wise. But when I met Nancy, we became close friends quickly because we had so much in common. I would say the thing Nancy talked about most as a hairdresser listening to her were her children and her grandchildren. She loved them more than life itself. And she spoke highly and always talked about her trips to visit them. And we were both into bodybuilding at the same time, so we had that in common. Not that many years later, we both got into motorcycles together. I rode a Harley. She had a badass Honda. Was it a Honda, right? A Suzuki. And we would take Sunday morning rides from Fort Lauderdale up to West Palm Beach and have breakfast and come back as we learned to ride bikes together. We would go very early to be safe because we both felt a little insecure, but we became pretty good motorcyclists. Nancy also was a light. I mean, a pure light. And anybody that met Nancy, and every picture I look at, that smile, that $1 million smile that she always shared with everybody, was so bright as her light was, because she never, and I think Cheryl hit this, never judged anybody, was always so kind and compassionate. No matter where we were in our lives, she shined light on it. And she shared the gift of meditation with me as I was learning to meditate more. And we shared that as well. The hard part was to see her mind decline over the last 7 years. That was noticeable as I visited her. And I was just so happy and grateful, Jerry, that you were able to give her Red Rock home, where she always felt the vortex of the spirit here. And she longed to be here. So I'm so grateful that she got the time here. Besides the love affair that she had with Jerry, which we all envied because it was so special, I never, ever in 30 years heard her say a negative thing or a false thing about anybody, but certainly not about her Jerry. Because Jerry was the master fixer of it all for her. He was her king, and she was his queen, and he treated her that way. And I'm just so grateful to see all of you here to share in this celebration of her life, because she was a special human being, and she was a special gift to the world. And I'm also very happy that she's no longer suffering this horrible disease. And she's free. She's free. She knew where she was going, and she is free, and she is happy. And thanks to everybody for being here. Thank you, Jerry, Heather, Nancy, Debbie, Cheryl, Nan. I know that you meant the world to her because she shared that with me frequently. Thank you.
So many awesome testimonies. So by now, our relationship was developing. We got super close. I was now getting into the natural bodybuilding scene, and she was right there with me. And we became partners / client trainer 4 or 5 or 6 days a week at 5 a.m. We would meet at Gold Coast Gym or Gold's Gym. And it was at Nancy and Jerry's prompting that I went out on my own and started a fitness business. Even at one point, I opened up a studio in Fort Lauderdale. And I owe that boldness and ability to go out, because here I was, a young kid. They gave me the confidence. And you hear that over and over again in other people's testimonies, like Steve. Nancy built confidence in people, and that was an amazing part of her character. That was the part of her that I really love. She pushed people to be better, to take a chance. Then she would support in any way she could the decision that you made, and others have said the same thing. The next letter I'm going to read for you is from Ingrid King. Ingrid King was a friend that Nancy met on the internet who became a lifelong friend. Ingrid writes, "Remembering Nancy. Where do you begin to share memories from a friendship that lasted for more than 30 years? Nancy and I met online in 1990 in one of the earliest versions of social media, a Prodigy message board. We were discussing the 1989 Oliver Stone movie, Born on the 4th of July, starring Tom Cruise. I'm not sure how we went from discussing the movie to discovering a mutual interest in Shirley MacLaine's 1983 book, Out on a Limb. But we took our discussions of various spiritual topics offline, and thus began our exchange of daily emails, often multiple times a day, that lasted until the cruel progression of Nancy's illness destroyed her ability to communicate via email. Our first in-person meeting took place later that year on, of all things, an 80-foot yacht. Nancy called on a Friday afternoon, letting us know that she and Jerry were bringing the boat from Annapolis to Baltimore over the weekend. And did my then husband and I want to join them and another for the weekend? I think it took Walt and me about 30 seconds to say, "Yes, please." We ended up spending a magical weekend on board this luxury yacht, further cementing a friendship that became one of the pivotal relationships in my life. I have so many wonderful memories of Nance, and it would take hours to share them. So let me focus on a couple of really special ones that stand out among all the others. When Michael Marine, as Nance always referred to her son, returned from the Gulf War in 1991, Nancy couldn't wait for him to return to Florida. She wanted to welcome him at Camp Lejeune. Did I want to meet her there? Of course I did. Nance picked me up at Jacksonville Airport and drove us straight to Camp Lejeune to figure out where we were supposed to meet the returning Marines. We found out that the amphibious landing crafts were to come ashore at Ormond Beach early in the following morning. We knew we wanted to be there. As we were trying to find our way to the beach, we somehow took a wrong turn. I should mention that Nance was driving, LOL. Suddenly we realized that we weren't on an Amtrak training. We were on an Amtrak training ground on the base that we most definitely shouldn't have been on. Somehow, we must have missed the multiple danger signs that we noticed on the way back to the road. The next morning, as the sun was coming up over the ocean, we watched the Marines land on the beach, an unforgettable memory. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to greet them on the beach, but had to wait in a parking lot for buses to bring them in, which didn't happen until hours later. As you can imagine, Nance's reunion with her beloved Michael Marine was beautiful and emotional, and it was a privilege to get to be a part of it. Another really special memory is from the time when Nancy went to Germany with me after my father passed away. She knew how hard it would be for me to deal with everything alone. She had never been to Europe, didn't speak German, but none of that mattered. She wanted to be there for me. I really don't know how I would have gotten through my dad's funeral and cleaning out his home without her presence, love, and support. And because adventure seemed to find us whenever we were together, our days in Germany were capped with another, shall we say, unusual experience. I wanted to visit my mother's grave before we left Germany. By the time we got to the city where she was buried, the evening before our flight home, it was already dark. It was January, there was snow on the ground, and it was bitter cold. My warm-blooded Florida friend was being a real trooper and insisted that we go to the cemetery anyway. Unfortunately, I wasn't entirely sure exactly where my mother's grave was. So here we were in the dark, in the snow, in the freezing cold, with a flashlight, trying to locate her grave. What could have been a somber and emotional experience turned into a veritable giggle fest. If that's not a testament to friendship, I don't know what is. The last time I saw my dear friend in person was the summer of 2015. Nancy had come to Washington with Heather for a mother-daughter trip, but took a day to visit me. As with all of our visits, it was always sad to say goodbye at the end. Little did I know that it would be the last time I'd see her in person. The evening of the day when I received Jerry's heartbreaking email letting me know that Nance had passed, I had a strong sense of her presence. It was like she was reassuring me that she was free now, and that she was not really gone, but rather that our friendship would continue into eternity. Rest easy, dearest friend, until we meet again. The next letter is a eulogy from Lee Perez. Lee Perez is a dear friend of the family, formerly married to Susie Higgins. Lee writes, I have had the honor and privilege of knowing Nancy for over 15 years. Nancy had a passion for life. Jerry and her children were the focus of her heart. Nancy had a way about her that was thoughtful, warm, and tender. One of the many things that I loved about Nancy was that she made me feel comfortable and welcome. One of the last memories I have of Nancy was during the last couple of years that she was struggling with her cognitive abilities. Nancy, with the help of her husband and family, did absolutely everything she could to maintain her independence and humanity. One of the many things Nancy did and enjoyed was to go out in the neighborhood for long walks. It was a beautiful, warm mid-afternoon in Sedona. The air was crisp. There was a slight wind and the sky was a light blue with beautiful white cloud formations. On this particular day, Nancy had lucid intervals where we engaged in fun, coherent conversation. On our return back, we came to a fork in the road. We discussed which way to go. Nancy did not know that I had a long history of being spatially challenged. We ended up going the way that Nancy suggested, and she was right. Shortly after, we both had a good laugh, and she said out loud, "At least I still have some of my marbles left." Nancy will always hold a special place in my heart. May she rest in peace. Nancy may not be with us in the physical form, but the love and connection that her family and friends share is eternal. Love to y'all, Lee. The next letter is from Steve and Sue Morin. Steve and Sue are friends that Nancy met while in India at an ashram. Nancy Ann Swaggart Slakoff. I am Steve Morin, meditator and certified financial planner, real estate manager, and husband to Susan Kroll. We lived in Florida for 30 years, and I hosted a sit-sang meditation group along with others once a week, sometimes at my house, other times at other homes. Nancy was there every Wednesday. She was the type of person that went all in with life, including Apple Mac, working out, great wife, mother, meditator, traveling. She did not stand on ceremony or status. She was the real deal. There was a crazy hierarchy of hoops to jump through before you could go to India. Nancy jumped over most of them and planned her trip to be on her schedule. She learned that from Jerry, I think. She was loved and accepted in a village with 200 people that did not even know her within minutes of arriving. My wife Susan and I loved her as all did instantly. You don't meet that many people that tell you they will help you if you need and really mean it. She had that vibe that she would do anything you asked. She understood that she would not lose a bit of herself by going all in and giving the shirt off her back. What an amazing person that taught that sense of giving, all by her own example. Love and light. Signed, Steve and Sue. Now I want to read the lyrics of a song by Lionel Richie in honor of Jerry. 3 Times a Lady by Lionel Richie. Thanks for the times that you've given me. The memories are all in my mind. And now that we've come to the end of our rainbow, there's something I must say out loud. You're once, twice, 3 times a lady, and I love you. Yes, you're once, twice, 3 times a lady, and I love you. When we are together, the moments I cherish, with every beat of my heart, to touch you, to hold you, to feel you, to need you. There's nothing to keep us apart. You're once, twice, 3 times a lady, and I love you. I love you. You're Jerry with a G. Yes, I agree with the words. She was 3 times a lady. And because she was so helpful and supportive to all close to her. In my case, she came to all my competitions and took pictures and celebrated all the victories. She also did so many things, like make stacks of workout sheets, consent forms, body composition testing forms for my training business. She also was so kind to my wife, Suzanne, often emailing her, connecting on their mutual love of animals, sending gifts and cards. Oh, the cards. She was one of the happiest people at our wedding and at the birth of our daughter, Anna. She was like a sister to me. And I have 4 sisters, but in many ways, she was closer than my own sisters. Let me introduce our next speaker, Ella Roberts.
Hello, friends, neighbors, Nancy's loved ones. Nancy and I met in Manzanita Hills in 2011. We quickly discovered our mutual love of hiking, walking hills, and nature, and thus a close friendship began. Walking together Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, the earlier the better, usually at daybreak. Such joy. Nancy was confident of her abilities, so agreeable and easy and loving and easy to talk with. We would talk and laugh a lot, finding humor even in the mundane. I so appreciated her lightness of being and easy to please ways. And the stories she shared, what a full, vivid, involved life she lived. We started going out for coffee on Saturdays, of course, after our walk, ending up at Hyatt Pinion Starbucks. Our friendship deepened. Then in 2014, we met first Tom and Jane, then Ken and Terry, and various other characters who would come and go. We learned so much about people and life in Sedona, with Nancy being an important, valued member of our little group of kindred spirits. In January 2015, we started going to Unity Church together. Nancy adored Michael Murdad, the minister. She would exclaim, "How does he do it? Every message is so profound and from his heart." She was impressed. And as many as you know, quite spiritual, not religious, she liked to say, spiritual. Nancy had learned so many meaningful lessons through her active, engaged life. The ones we all heard, we are all one, and our favorite, at least with me, we are not our thoughts. Nancy helped me many a time through difficult emotional issues with these words, said with such love and understanding. I miss her so every day. When I walk our beloved neighborhood, I feel her presence, always one step ahead, encouraging me, never tiring. Nancy believed deeply in reincarnation, so one day we may recognize one another again. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Barbara Morris.
Well, hi, everybody. I may be the only one here that hasn't known Nancy that long. I knew her about a year and a half, and I ran the fitness center at Los Albergados. And when COVID hit and Amy was training Nancy, Amy decided not to come back because of COVID. She was concerned that Jerry would bring Nancy in 3 times a week no matter what. So because I watched Nancy a lot, and we always made sure she had the right locker, she would just blossom when she would get in the fitness center. That was her. In April, we'd bring her in and get her in the locker room and get her ready to go. We'd get her on the treadmill, and she would just come alive in the gym. And I started training her for a few times, and it just made her so happy. And she would tell me, "This feels good. This makes me happy." And fitness was not what Nancy did, but it was a part of who she was. It really was. And I remember one time I trained her, and I think I pushed her a little bit too hard because Jerry told me the next day she couldn't get out of bed. She got a little sore, but she loved it. And the next time I saw her after that, which I think was one of the last times, she remembered it and she wanted to do it again. And she would tell me, she goes, and the Alzheimer's was getting really bad at that time, and she couldn't really remember. Her mind and her body just were fighting each other at this point, but she would still get in there and we would do stuff, and it was just all heart and all spirit. And she taught me something, and I've heard the definition of courage is not the lack of fear, but it's still doing it anyway. And I think that's how Nancy lived her life, was she was still trying to do it every day the best that she could. And we had anger, and we had laughter, and we had tears during our training sessions. But I think she always left happier than when she got there. And Jerry, I have to say, watching him with Nancy and making sure that she was there 3 times a week and that she had what she needed and that she was okay. And he'd always sit on the recumbent bike and kind of keep an eye and make sure she was behaving herself and doing okay. But I think love is the definition of the way Jerry took care of Nancy. And that song from Lionel Richie, and that just brought tears to my eyes. That was beautiful. And I just want to thank you all for letting me be here and share my little piece of Nancy. And Jerry, thank you so much for giving us all the inspiration of how you cared for Nancy. Thanks.
Our next speaker, April O'Keefe.
I first met Nancy, of course, while I was on an interview for a caregiving position. And I just remember, Jerry with his notebook sitting in the couch, and of course, Nancy's sitting and looking at her red rocks over there. And the patience and the love that Jerry had, he kept explained to Nancy who I was, why I was needed, many, many times. I mean, this, it was just, it was wonderful. And the good news is I got the position, and our adventure began together. We would take long walks together, long walks. Nancy always a bit ahead of me, explaining, "Come on, lady, move it. You can do it. You can do it." And boy, inspiration. Yeah. What a great job. I had this workout every morning, and boy, I tell you, I got in really great shape. There's about 25, 30 pounds less here. And really, I mean, she just got me in shape. Inspirations of Nancy. And I became to be known as that lady. She couldn't remember April. It was always that lady. And I would go to the gym with Nancy, me, that lady, doing the best I could to help her along the gym circuit, failing miserably. And she would always be exclaiming to me, "You need the gym more than me." She's so right. She was so right. So one day, I think it was Jerry was kind of like, so I went over to that elliptical bike, and I thought again, what a great job. I'm on this bike, and I'm looking out at the red rocks and getting this body in shape. And there was a big inspiration of Nancy that will be in my heart. We were looking at her Mac one day, and we came across photos of India. And Nancy told me of stories of her time there in India, how she missed India, and how she wanted to return. She's like, "I want to go back to India." And it was that day that she did go back to India in her mind. She went to this place. It was palpable. The peace that filled the room with her red rocks. And I joined her in meditation. She sat on the couch looking at her red rocks, telling me to sit and close my eyes. I mean, the peace was everywhere. I was just like, whoa, whoa. And Nancy's, it was like her mind was there. And this, whatever that was gone. She just unfolded into this place of being. And I felt so lovely to be there with her. And then Nancy said to me, the guru is really inside you. That's where the peace is. And I felt that peace. And Nancy was just with that peace. 111. It was true. We took walks together. We went to the gym. We meditated together. We had healing sessions together with Reiki. Nancy and me, that lady. It has been a privilege to know Nancy and Jerry, to be a part of her unwinding from this life. A privilege. Thank you, Nancy, your life and inspiration. I will remember you in my heart. I will keep walking, building strength, body, mind, and soul.
Thank you.
Well, that was one of Nancy's most endearing qualities, her desire to see the best come out of everyone. We just heard it in April's testimony. I think that's why we were so close. We were both type A, but with a twist. We pushed each other, but we cared for each other, and we knew it. Our lives intersected in a beautiful way, and we affected each other. I never knew about Nancy's illness till about 1 year ago. My last vision of her was when she, working out with me for 2 years from 2009 to 2011, defeated cancer. She was free of cancer and now moving to her dream home in Sedona. The next letter I'd like to read is from Herb and Sheila Fidlow. Herb and Sheila are friends from the boating industry. Hello, we are Herb and Sheila Fidlow. We live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and sadly are unable to attend this celebration of life. Today is more about remembering all the happy memories and all the happy days we shared with Nance, than being sad about saying goodbye for those we truly love, we never truly leave. 40 years ago, and the first of those many, many happy memories and days was when we met, as a lot of friends did, on a boat. It was our 12-meter trawler that Nance, her clipboard, and her assistant Jerry were surveying for us. The days, weeks, months, and years passed by much too quickly. Nancy was truly a gentle and loving soul. Many years ago in Florida, Sheila and I were out shopping. It was so close to Christmas, and Jerry called and said, would we like some Maine lobsters that a client had sent him for Christmas? I said, why? Didn't you want them? And he said, it's Nancy. She doesn't want them. I said, she named them, right? And he said, you got it. There was no way that our Nance was going to take a living thing that she had in her possession, killing it and eating it. We went over to the house, picked up the lobsters, took them home, invited another couple over, and we enjoyed the luscious, tasty, buttery Maine lobsters. I am not a gentle and loving soul. We spent many lovely vacations together, Blowing Rock, in the Carolinas, of course, Sedona, before they even had a house that they finally bought, and she decided this was really the place that we should call home. This is not a time for us to grieve her death, but a time to celebrate her life. I think we've been doing that today. Don't ever forget Nance never wanted to see people cry. She wanted to make everyone happy. So at this moment, let us all think back and remember how Nancy touched our lives and how she made us laugh and how good she was as a person. She was truly, above all, a gentle and loving soul. We should be thankful that we were given a chance to have known a woman named Nance. I totally agree. The next letter is from Nellie Dravette. Nellie is a personal trainer and a friend of Nancy and Heather's from Fort Lauderdale. Dear Nancy, I met you in Fort Lauderdale as a friend of your daughter Heather, who had hired me to help her get in perfect shape for the wedding. This was only the beginning of a lifetime friendship, not only with her, but also with you, Jerry, and Watson. You opened the door to me in Florida as though I were family. That familial warmth felt just as comforting to me here as my own family in France. I remember doing my Sunday jogs by your home, when a short stop for water inevitably grew to a lovely afternoon hanging out in your home. I am grateful to have been invited not just into your house, but to birthdays and Thanksgiving dinners too. I look back fondly on how eager you were to move to the beautiful house in Sedona, surrounded by good spirit. Heather liked it so much she followed suit and moved out to be close with you. Hearing Heather talk about Arizona, I too wanted to visit and go out west. We planned a road trip in May of 2013 to Sedona, Flagstaff, Lake Powell, Vermilion Park, just as before you opened your arms welcoming me to your love and kindness, or with your love and kindness. I remember a funny story when we went to a crystal store and everyone got a genuine stone. When I got home, I proudly showed the family how to cleanse the stone with salt water overnight. But the morning after, the stone simply vanished. I learned soon after that the pink halite are salt stones and should not be cleaned with water because they are salt. We went back to the store for a new one. In all these years, you never forgot my birthday once. Moreover, you sent me custom cards made with your computer. Some were funny, some were blessings, some even contained gifts. It was so thoughtful, and I thank you for putting your heart in it. When the card stopped, I thought it must have been the distance. I was sad to learn that this was because of the disease, but proud to see you stand as a warrior to fight it. Though it is now time to say goodbye, rest in peace, that you will be in my heart. Au revoir, Nellie Dravette. The next letter is from Kim Miles. Kim was a friend from Sedona who walked with Nancy. Nancy and Jerry and I met one evening as we walked our dogs. Watson, their terrier, and the Whigs, my Bichon Frise, became fast friends as we did. For several years after that, until I moved, Nancy and I walked almost every evening. Nancy was a remarkable woman. She was one of the warmest, friendliest, and caring people I have ever met. She was loving, compassionate, and a great listener. An important trait with a husband who has so many interesting stories and much wisdom to share. But Nancy had her own adventures and experiences to contribute. On our walks, we talked about everything: spirituality, meditation, health and fitness, our dogs, our children, Sedona, and love. Nancy shared many stories from her life, such as weight training, to riding motorcycles with Jerry across country, to finding her soulmate in Jerry. One of my favorite memories is when we went to the Sedona Food Trucks event at Posse Ground. Nancy and I were in line at a truck serving New England lobster rolls and whoopie pies. I told Nancy how much I loved whoopie pies and how they reminded me of happy summer memories spent in Maine. Nancy looked at me and said something to the effect, "Kim, you know you can make your whole life as delicious and joyful as a whoopie pie." I consider both Nancy and Jerry as one of my best friends and most inspiring couples. Together they have taught me that life is an adventure to be lived, that joy is our purpose, and that love is always the answer. The next letter is from George and Dee Dee Cable. George and Dee Dee Cable own a marina in Fort Lauderdale, and they were the first door that Jerry knocked on in Fort Lauderdale that started his boat surveying business. So George and Dee Dee's letter says, living on a boat in Bahia Mar, living in a condo on Davie Boulevard, living in a home in Coral Ridge, living in beautiful Sedona, surveying a boat, holding a clipboard, and writing every word Jerry said during an inspection, reading a book while riding on the back of Jerry's motorcycle, sitting on the ground while cleaning the exhaust pipes on the motorcycle prior to a bike show. Her warmth, her wonderful smile, and infectious laugh, making picture albums of all the places and adventures shared with Jerry and friends. Hours and days spent in front of her computer, keeping up with family, friends, and her world. She confided more than once how Jerry had rescued her and had given her a real life filled with happiness, adventure, and love, especially love. We never say Nancy without Jerry, because in addition to being her great, lasting love, Jerry could fix anything. We never think of one of you without the other. And Jerry, you should know that Nancy was devoted to you always. These are just some of our memories of a great lady, George and Dee Dee Cable. The last letter here is from Claude and Nancy Racine. Claude was a yacht broker and a boat captain who became a close friend over the years. Jerry, you chose the greatest wife. She was always by your side, assisting you in your work. I have fond memories of her with her pen and pad, helping you on many surveys of boats I was on. My best memory of her was when we visited you and Nancy in Sedona a few years ago. She was such a wonderful host, and we all went to Michael Myrdad at the Unity Church, had a steak for dinner, went out for pizza the next day. Just a great person to be around. Thanks. Nancy, you were the best. Claude. My Nancy has great memories to share too. Jerry, I love Nancy and all she was doing. She went to India a few times. I would have gone with her had I known her then. I'm glad she went to Unity Church and enjoyed Michael Myrdad. We talked a lot about him and his services. She kept me informed. I'll always remember when she called me to tell me about the service. She said he was so wonderful. It's so nice to be around like-minded people. I love Sedona. Sorry we didn't come out sooner to be with you all. Wish we could be there all winter. She got us so excited about coming out. We miss you, Nancy, and we'll always love you. Thanks for being there for us. Now, before I introduce our last speaker, I have 2 emails from Nancy that I want to share that touch my heart. The first one was from our last communication that I received from her in 2015. The second one is so touching and shows how caring she was, especially regarding pets. But take notice of how we can apply her thoughts to how we think of her. Okay, let's go through these 2. Nancy writes to me on May 1st, 2015. I just wanted to tell you I went for a hike/walk this morning, and I decided to jog. I've really been slacking off in that area. Jogging, in parentheses. I desperately need the CV. It turned out to be the best ever! Exclamation point. Why? Question mark. Because each time I was going to slow down, in parentheses she says, kept heart rate near 150. I could hear you yelling at me. I had visions of us running in the rain, the heat, etc. See, you have a major effect on people's lives far into the future! Exclamation point. I just want to say thanks to you for my great morning. I now have incentive to get back in the groove. And in caps, she has you! Exclamation point. Love, Nance. So I responded, wow, that's awesome. I must confide in you. I have been thinking a lot lately as well about the training days. That was a real passion for me. And I was even telling Big Neil, he was another one of my clients, the other day about how I started with you and Jerry and how much you guys both transformed. Thank you for the reminder. I just sent your letter to Suzanne, and I said I will never get a letter like this from someone telling me I helped change their life because I sold them a car. God bless you and Jerry. I will always be grateful for your friendship and the push you gave me to go out on my own in business. Thank you. Love, Dave. That was the last time I heard from her, but I have another. This one is amazing. Okay, I wrote to her, "Dear Nancy," and now listen to the behind the spiritual part of this at the end. "Dear Nancy, I hope your trip is going well. I thought of you this morning. We had to say goodbye to Rusty yesterday, unexpectedly." That's one of our dogs. "She began to have difficulty breathing on Sunday night. Suzanne took her to the animal hospital on Monday. It turns out she had blood clots in her lungs, and it caused her to have a severe pulmonary condition. We were hoping to pick her up and bring her home yesterday, but God had other plans for her. She went to join her sister Gypsy at around 6 p.m. You are the biggest dog lover I know, so I wanted to let you know. I also know that you and Suzanne have connected over the years and that you would send her an email. This is all quite a shock because Rusty recently had a complete blood workup and exam, and other than arthritis and old age, she got a clean bill of health. Take care and have a great summer. Say hi to Jerry and to your whole family. God bless. Love, David." This is her response to me. "Dear David and Suzanne, I'm so very sorry to hear about Rusty. Thank you both for the emails. It sounds like it's a blessing for Rusty to be rid of that ailing body with its blood clots and pulmonary problems. But what a shock for you two to be thinking she's in good health and then have this happen. Perhaps she has taught everything she came to earth to teach and thus was ready to depart. And now she is playing in those beautiful meadows by Rainbow Bridge, romping with Gypsy and Sherlock and so many others. She must feel so free in so many ways. Please know that you're in my thoughts and in my heart. Be gentle with yourselves. Allow yourselves some time to just grieve and be with memories of her. You'll be catching glimpses of her out of the corner of your eye every now and then. She'll probably be by your side right now as you read this, free of sickness, and so very grateful to you all for the love and the good life you gave her. Close your eyes and feel her essence. My love and thoughts are with you. Feel my hugs, Nance." And then she finishes with this poem. "Look not where I was, for I am not there. My spirit is free. I am everywhere. In the air that you breathe and the sounds that you hear. Don't cry for me, Mommy and Daddy. My spirit is near. I'll watch for you from the other side. I'll be the one running, so many friends by my side. Smile at my memory, remember in your heart. This isn't the end, it's a brand new start." So with that, I'm going to introduce our last speaker, Hamid Sani.
It's an honor to speak on this celebration of life. Being the last speaker has its disadvantages. All the speakers have spoken everything I had in my notes. So I'm sitting back there in the last 10 minutes, I'm trying to create a new speech. It's not easy. I've heard many stories and many anecdotes about Nancy. And it is my impression that she was a very advanced soul. She was always searching, always looking. And I believe she also knew the fundamental trinity that is needed to become spiritual. And that trinity is beauty, goodness, and righteousness. We know what beauty is. Goodness. Goodness is having the right relationships with the people, but most importantly, with nature. Righteousness does not mean judging people. Righteousness is love in action. And she had it all. Now, as a spiritual person is striving to become better and better, they reach a point where two questions come to their mind. The first one is, what is the purpose of my life? And the second question is, what am I doing to pay the rent for the space I occupy on this planet? I believe her whole life was a life of searching for the answers. Spiritual life is an eternal journey. Every time you incarnate, you get a little bit closer. And if you are looking for spirituality, then you should be looking for experiences, experiments, and discoveries. They are happening every day, at every moment. And if you are doing something with true dedication, which means with pure heart and the right motives, you get a little closer to your spiritual core. And that's what Nancy was. But I want to talk to you about how Jerry met Nancy. It's not like the movies. Jerry was in a meatpacking business, and he used to get calls for the orders for his products. One day, this lady calls, and she is talking to Jerry, and she said one word, and after that word, Jerry's mind stopped. He just could not get that word out of his mind. I bet everybody wants to know what that word was. I'm not going to tell you. Because when Jerry told me the story, he said it was not the word, but it was the way she said it. And he decided right there, I have to meet this woman. And that's how their courtship started. So when their lives went through a lot of personal problems, when they were all settled, Jerry told Nancy, let's get out of Pennsylvania and let's go down to Florida. And so on his 37-foot powerboat, they started on their way to Florida. And Nancy said along the way, where are we going? He says, Fort Lauderdale. What are we going to do there? And Jerry says, that is a mecca for the rich and the super rich who come to buy expensive boats. And since I love boats, I will find a job there. So when they reached Fort Lauderdale, they decided to live in that boat. Every morning, when they came to the breakfast table, Jerry said to Nancy, good morning, dear. I love you. will you marry me? Nancy said, good morning, dear. I love you. And no. Next day, again at the breakfast table, Jerry said, good morning, dear. I love you. Will you marry me? She says, no. How many times can a man take rejection? This went on for a whole year. Same 3 sentences, and she said no. Jerry's saying, I got to change my tactics. What do I do now? So he says, good morning, dear. I love you. And he stopped. And she would say, good morning. I love you too. She wouldn't say anything. These 2 sentences went on for 6 months. That's 540 days of rejection and implied rejection. He's not giving up. Jerry is so persistent. So one day, after the conversation, Nancy said, when are you thinking of asking me to marry you? And before she could say anything, Jerry said, will you marry me? And she said yes. And that was the beginning of almost 41 years of blissful marriage. So they lived, and Jerry was now making money, so they moved from the water to the land. Now, all the time, she's looking for something that will add to her knowledge. Remember, she was a spiritual person, and I told Jerry that even before she was born, because also she believed in reincarnation, she must have had something within her telling her that. So she looked all over Florida. She couldn't find anything. She found a place in Kulu Valley in northern India at the foot of the Himalayas. And so she went there for 3 months. There she learned abstract topics that ordinary people would not think of. There are simple words that we use every day, but we really don't understand. If I were to ask you, what is beauty? You will tell me everything about beauty, but not give me the definition. And that's where she learned a lot. She must have liked it because she went there for 4 more years, 3 months at a time. Towards the end, Jerry would go there and they would travel over India as tourists. When she came back, she was very knowledgeable. But knowledge is not wisdom. People equate that. It's not. Knowledge is knowledge. You can read 500 books and be knowledgeable. That information is like warehousing, and it is totally useless unless you know how to use it. And in order to convert the knowledge to wisdom, you have to learn to actualize it, which means you have to learn how to use it in everyday practical life. And she did. And that is why you hear all the qualities what people are talking about today. That's where she got the wisdom. Unfortunately, she got Alzheimer's, a very horrible, horrible disease. Jerry, his life changed. I know that because his entire life revolved around Nancy. Everything, from the time he got up to the time he got to bed. Sometimes he didn't go to bed because of Nancy. He was a dedicated husband. And in spite of the fact that Nancy was slowly getting more and more into the disease and its effect, she always thought of Jerry. He was her strong person to be with. A time came when Jerry could no longer take care of her. So he had to put her in a facility. Then COVID hit. And when he went to see her, they said, oh, you cannot see her except through a glass partition. Imagine the frustration. Both sides, Jerry and Nancy. Nancy, even though with Alzheimer's, she had spurts of awakening. She would ask him about her children, her stepchildren, her grandchildren, and then all of a sudden she would revert back. And that's the way almost the entire year Jerry saw her, through the glass partition. April 23rd, that was the day, I know it was Friday, because on Friday we were visiting our friend Ed. And at that time Jerry said, I'm going to go and visit Nancy. Now Nancy is pretty much deep into the disease. Her brain is not transmitting signals to her physical body. But her mind is strong. The brain is not the mind. They are totally two different things. Her heart was vibrant and alive. She was radiating love to her husband, to her children, to her friends. Next day when he called me, I was shocked. I would like to think that Nancy would be very happy if I said she was a point of light within a greater light. She was a strand of loving energy within a stream of divine love. She was a spark of sacrificial fire, focused within the fiery will of God. And that she stood for almost 41 years. May God bless her soul. Namaste.
Thank you for all the guests that have spoken and all the letters that have been read, all the wonderful friends of Nancy and Jerry's that contributed to this service today. Jerry and the Slakoff family would like to invite everybody here over to the home at 505 Orchard Lane for a very nice reception immediately following this time together. And then again, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming. On behalf of Jerry and the Slakoff family, it's been a wonderful time celebrating Nancy's life. And now let's go and continue the celebration over at Jerry's house.